don't see what's yours for the taking tonight.
Good morning. It's the last show of the year, so I'm going to be goofy as I want to be today. I'm just letting you know. That's right. You think, what? Oh, is that a seam? You know what I'm saying? I knew I saw the tag when I put it on, but again, that boy in me who always liked to do the opposite said, "You're not the boss of me, tag. I'm going to put you where I want you." That's why the seam was in front, because I put the tag in front. Why do I still do that? Anyway, good morning, you guys. Welcome to today's installment, the final show of the year, right here on Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Dr. Loren. Excited to be here. Today officially starts the Christmas rush for us, the run. We'll leave, matter of fact, after this show, I think probably within an hour and a half, even though I have a bunch of calls today. See that? A bunch of calls. Gonna do them from the car. Got to get on the road. I won't be driving though. I'm gonna be sprawled out on the passenger side in my makeshift office. So anyway, how are you doing? Please tell me you're done with your Christmas shopping. I am. Well, a couple things didn't get here in time, but hey, not gonna sweat it. Welcome. It is the 12/22/2023. Love those twos. 12/22 of 2023. What will you be thinking if you were to guesstimate? What will you be thinking this time next year? What will you be grateful for this time next year? What will you be in the process of manifesting for 2025 this time next year in 2024? Think about it based on where you are today and what you were doing this time last year. How impeccable with your word have you been to yourself first? You know, oftentimes when we look back over the shoulder of our journey and we think about when we dropped the ball, when this went south or that went left, if we're really honest with ourselves, if we want to know who's truly responsible, in most cases, we will point to ourselves and say, I was responsible. So the reason I say that is to encourage you all as we change the look for 2024, as we change into the newer version of ourselves for 2024. Just remember the covenants you make with yourself. Be true to yourself. Shakespeare said it best, to thine own self be true. Because then from there, every place you go, everything you leave will be a product of your own truths. Can I get an amen? And the truth is the only thing in this world, on the planet, in the universe that will never, ever, never change. And the truth will never change on us. That's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So there's the bell of purpose. Why do I keep ringing it? Well, I got nothing better to do. No, I ring it because that bell, yes, just like the truth, well, it has a ring to it. And I know we're busy. I know you guys, everybody's probably rapping. Over there, I see you feeding the baby oatmeal. Over there, you're flat ironing your hair. And what are you doing? Who gets stuck in traffic anymore? Work from home. Anyway, the point is, we get busy, but we should never be so busy that we miss the truth, right? Okay, so do I have any announcements? I'm over in Wave today practicing the new platform before we come back next year. When we come back on the 8th of January, we'll go live. There'll be great reruns being played by the network all the way till the 8th of January. And once we come back, you know how it is every year. New show opener, new set. Everything behind me will be different. New me. And new you, new year. So I look forward to that. Who do we have today for the final show of the year? Now, you know, you might have thought I'd had clowns coming in and maybe a couple dance routines lined up for you, because during the holiday season, a lot of people, we've already talked about that this year, so we're not going to go back down that road. However, when we think about the mental state of a lot of people during the holidays, we know that a lot of people have issues. They're depressed. I was talking about it just yesterday, that Christmas where I was sitting around with a bunch of people doing drugs, and our Christmas dinner were dollops of condiments. Here's a spoonful of relish. Want some mustard? How about some ketchup? Really? And so I've been there, but there's another layer of grayness, if you will, called grief, that people deal with it now. I remember back in COVID, one of my viewers reached out. They lost, in the week leading up to Christmas, the 7 days leading up, they lost 5 people. So what are they doing right now? Grieving. How could they not? It hasn't been that long. Things happen. Life continues. No matter when it is, not just the holiday season, but any day. Grief can be a hard thing. Raise your hand if you've dealt with it. I know most of us have. Today's guest is going to help us with that. Her name is SUZANNE Jabour. She's a Canadian, and she lost a son in September of 2020. And we all know, you hear it all the time, but if you haven't lived it, I'm sure it just, there's no way it could resonate like it does with those who have lived it. And what I mean is burying a child. SUZANNE says that she knew she would only manage if she stayed conscious and curious. Otherwise, that sudden loss would surely break her. She discovered that the way people showed up for her, get it popping up in front of me. If they did it all, it mattered, and that there are no right words and no way to fix grief, but there are powerful ways of showing up that make a huge difference. She started writing. Today, she's a certified grief educator. She's trained transformational life coach. She is a trained transformational life coach and a facilitator. She's done everything, really, from corporate training and public speaking, and she's done it for well over 20 years. And who does she work with? Well, companies, grievers, and she supports people just like you to open the conversation and navigate the journey, providing support to those who are grieving so that they can stay in the awkwardness that all of that requires. How interesting. Wouldn't think you'd want to stay in that awkwardness, but she knows what she's talking about. So listen, right now, think about who you might know. And you might think, oh, but I don't want to pick that scab for them. I don't want to throw this over in their world today. If someone you know is struggling or has been struggling with grief and how to do it, grief is like a paint strip. It has all different shades. We all know there are stages of grieving. But there's a lot beyond what the textbooks and all the pros tell you. We're going to find out from someone who's literally lived it, which makes her an authority. So put your hearts on the screen. It's our virtual way of saying welcome, standing to our feet as we welcome our guest today. Be prepared. It's a big day today. It's the last show of the year. And this is the show that wound up in the spot. So tells me something special is in the air. Here she comes, you guys. SUZANNE Jabour. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I love that it's the last show of the year, and I think you're right. I think that
You
means
think
it's
you
something
love
people
it.
need to hear, people need to talk about, people need to embrace the awkward. I know it sounds like we don't want to do that, and we don't, but we're going to need to. So here we go. Awkward.
Awkward is right, but necessary. So listen, I like to do a little thing before we really go down the rabbit hole to this very challenging yet necessary conversation. I always give the guests a minute or so to just kind of create a vibe with the audience, just talk to them from where you are, from your heart. And then I'll come back in about a minute in and we'll go officially get started with the interview. How's that sound?
That sounds spectacular.
Okay, it's all you. Take it away.
Thank you. So good morning, whether you're, as Dr. Loren said, feeding the baby, straightening your hair, driving in the car. I'm so sorry if you're driving in the car. I really want to welcome you into this conversation with some curiosity. There's going to be awkward moments. That's okay. And I'm really, when I talk about grief, it's not, I'm telling you now, it's not going to feel heavy. There's a reason I'm on with Dr. Loren. It's not going to be heavy. It's not going to be all gray. It's really going to be an encouraging conversation, a hopeful conversation, and one that as a griever, I need people to be having. And as someone who supports people who are grieving, we all need to be having together. So we're going to come together. We're going to talk about grief. We're going to make it sound kind of normal because it really is. And you're going to leave with some skills, some ideas, some mindset shifts, hopefully, that you can carry on into 2024 and forward into 2025, which sounds 1,000 years from now.
Oops, as you can tell, I'm new to this. I took you
I
out instead of putting
know.
me in. Listen, thank you for that. I received that. Nicely done. So, take us back. Well, first of all, let's get a little origin story in. Were you born and raised in Canada, and where at in Canada? What part of the country are you in?
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, which is north of Seattle. So if you know anything about Seattle, I'm in the Canadian version of Seattle.
Okay.
Say, mountains, water, lots of rain, beautiful green plants.
Well,
And yes, I was born and raised here. So I am the rare
okay.
born and raised Vancouverite.
Okay. And tell us about your family.
I have so
Uh-oh.
I have something.
Here we
Well, no,
go.
it's fun. It's a little bit interesting. I was raised. I'm an adoptee like you, and I was
Oh,
raised in an
wow.
amazing family with two brothers. And I recently found my birth mother and two more brothers. So I am now the proud sister to four brothers
Wow.
who all live.
Congratulations.
We live kind of all around the world. Um, and yeah, I have two kids. My son, as you said, died in 2020, so he's forever 22, and my daughter is 29. And we have a really adorable dog.
So you just had the two kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm pulling it up on I wanted to get the show going on my phone so I can watch it there. And by the way, if the internet starts getting okie and it freezes me, you keep going. They'll be able to hear you and see you. It'll be me
Perfect.
that'll look all weird. So okay. So you have one daughter
Yes.
remaining.
Yep.
But how interesting, you just found your family. Um, did your son know you were an adoptee?
Yeah, I've known my entire life. I don't
Okay.
actually remember my parents sitting me down and telling me. It just was part of who I was. It was never a big deal. Um, so yeah, my kids knew,
Your
everyone in
kids
my
knew.
life knew.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was just wondering, guys. I'm sure because I believe this. I believe sometimes when people transition out of our lives. I know when my birth mom, who I didn't meet until met for the second time, really, when I was 32. My dearest friend ever in life. Uh, you know, oh man, that threw me right there. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, um, wow. I just had a download about that. Wow, I think I might have some unresolved issues,
Hmm.
with seriously, because it's like someone just shook my Etch-a-Sketch up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I knew exactly what I wanted to say, but then I opened the door to my birth mother who has passed on, and boy, it shook it and cleared the ooh. Okay, so, okay, I guess I'll move in a different direction.
Go
Wow.
the way she's telling you.
Well, and that's what I was gonna get at. I know that my birth mom interceded. As she was transitioning, she told me what she had seen as far as where I was moving next in life. And 3
Mm.
weeks later, everything she said began to manifest. And so, why don't we start there? Take us back to, what led up to, and first of all, I don't want your son to be nameless. I wanna honor him. So what is his name?
Yeah, his name is Ben.
Ben, okay. So Ben was 22 when he transitioned.
Yep.
Do you and just stay within the lane that you're comfortable staying in as far as this, but can you kinda set it up for us? Give us some backstory about Ben. Tell us what kinda kid he was.
Ben Ben is a fascinating person. He was 99th percentile gifted, so
Mm,
so smart that you actually can't measure it, which means that
wow.
your brain actually operates differently, which was super interesting as a parent because I'm a bright typical person. I'm pretty smart, but my brain works like a normal person. When you're
Mhm.
the level gifted Ben was, like Mensa level gifted, your brain actually operates a different way. Which was super fascinating to watch him navigate. I explain it by saying he read Harry Potter in kindergarten, all
Wow.
six of the books, or however many there are. And his self chosen summer reading book between grade 3 and grade 4 was Moby Dick. So this was not a
Wow.
kid who was going to enjoy pretty much anything you asked him to read in school because it
He
was
would have been
stupid.
right. What are you giving me that baby book for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Kindergarten, he was only allowed to take books out of the picture book section of the school library because for some reason he had a teacher who really liked control. So she didn't want them in the other part of the library. So he would literally pick the book up at library time and take it to the classroom and put it back in the return your book box because they weren't allowed to not take a book out and he knew he would lose it because it was stupid. So he would just take it from the library into the return your book box and then he would come home and read Harry Potter.
And read what he wanted to.
Anyway,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah, he loved all kinds of things artistic, fashion, architecture, art, all those kinds of things, and really was super passionate about many things and had interests in many directions. So, read broadly, studied all kinds of things. and was working in fashion. Actually, when he died, he was managing fashion brand's store. So yeah, and
Wow.
COVID came and life was hard. And I choose to say that Ben died of depression and anxiety because I think it's important that we claim the disease that has cost our person their life. And unfortunately for him, that was fatal.
So it sounds like it was not some drug overdose.
Mm-mm.
It sounds like suicide.
He died by suicide. Yep.
Okay, died by okay. So no signs. Well, did you see any warning signs?
Not then. No, there had been warning signs other times for sure,
Oh,
but not that time.
not that
And
time.
so I had this conversation with one of his best friends, and she was so angry because every time there's, Suicide Awareness Month or day or however it works in your community,
Sure.
there's, out come the list, the 10 things to watch for. And it would just be, and it's infuriating to me too. So infuriating to her. And I say that to say, if you absolutely should be watching for those 10 things, 12, however many their list has, we should be watching out for each other all the time.
Anyway.
And if you see any of those things, you should actually be absolutely be checking in with your folks. And if you don't see any of those things, because none of them are there, and your loved one dies, it's not your fault. It's really so important for us to understand. I did everything. And she would get so infuriated because she would say, like, she would reach out all the time. He knew we loved him. We knew he loved us. Love was not the issue.
Mhm.
Acceptance was not the issue. No connection with loved ones was not the issue. Mental health was the issue.
Mm. Let me ask you, okay, in Ben's case, what lane of mental health are we talking? PTSD, sexual trauma, schizophrenia,
Yeah.
acute depression. Which lane, or did you know?
Yeah.
Was
Ben
he
was,
on medication of any kind?
yeah, he was diagnosed with depression and anxiety at a very young age. And he was not on medication because for him, the medication was not a good fit. He tried many of them.
Yes.
And he explained it to me, I thought, the most beautiful way because he said what happened on the medication was it leveled everything out. So it took away his joy.
Yeah.
And he said, Mom, why would I give up joy? Like, why do I want to live like that? I'm not going to give up joy. So if
Right.
that means I also have what we called the pit, which was the worst of the depression, I have the worst of the depression, but I'm not giving up joy.
Wow. Okay. Oof, that was a deep one. The pit. Not giving up joy. I understand that.
Yeah.
So you said this time. How many other times were there? Just offhand, I don't know if you have a precise count, but just how many other times were there that you thought,
He had no other attempts. He had no unsuccessful attempts.
okay,
Um, he first contemplated suicide when he was 10. So I can imagine there were a number of other times between 10 and 22. There
huh,
certainly were times that he was in the pit. That's what we called it. And we would talk about whether he was, at the bottom of the pit, standing looking at the pit. The pit is far away. You're hanging on by your fingernails. We had this whole language around the depression that we understood, and no one else needed to understand what we were talking about. It didn't matter. But yeah, he had a lot of trauma. The trauma that I see really happened in the school system the most.
how so?
Just with a lot of bullying. I think when you're a little kid that's
Gotcha.
that different,
Yeah.
people pick on you.
Yeah, and right at that juncture right there, I want to just throw this in, and let's not assume that when she says bullying, it is germane to other children. I've had a lot of people who were in the same situation say that in their own way, they were bullied by some of the adults at school.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, take that book. I don't care if you're gonna,
Yep.
that is a subtle but sturdy and accurate example of bullying.
Yeah. He was bullied by students, teachers, and administration.
And administration. A lot of
Yeah.
people, you don't hear that when we talk about bullying. A lot of people don't throw those last two out.
But
You
it's
know,
the reality. I mean, that's what he experienced, right?
yeah.
And you have to take this book because this is the kind of book you're allowed to read, was the most benevolent version, right?
Yeah.
Awful, teachers and administration and students said awful things to him, and
Public
of course
school?
the system is set up that he doesn't want, or most of the time didn't want me to say anything, didn't want me to go advocate for
Because it
him.
might make it worse.
Yep.
That's
Because
what
it
he
had
said
made
to
it worse
report.
in other instances where I would, and he'd say, no, like, we're not doing that anymore.
So let me just ask. So a lot of parents say, well, okay, my kid was going through this, and I pulled her out, and moved
Yep.
him to a better fit as
Yep.
far as a school, or homeschooled, or parochial school, whatever. There are options. So
Yep.
what was it about Ben's situation that he stayed in that not so comfortable place as
We
far as
pulled him in grade 4 from public school, put him in private school till grade 6, homeschooled him till grade 8, put him in a different school from grade 8 to the spring break of grade 12, pulled him spring break of grade 12, and he
Okay.
finished at a different school. So we tried the
You did it
whole
all.
concoction
You did
of
it all.
things to get him
Okay.
through. And really, at the spring break of grade 12, I said to him point blank, I don't care what it takes. We have put all of this effort into getting you through school. You are going to get this piece of paper. So however we have to do it, and he only needed to finish English. He had enough credits to graduate. He only needed to finish English, which was his easiest subject. He'd read Harry Potter in kindergarten.
Sounds
English
like
was
he
not
didn't
gonna be
want to
hard.
go back to school. Like he didn't want to finish school. Did he? Did you have to talk him into it?
No, he did want to finish, but he didn't want to finish at the school he was at.
Okay.
So
And
it was
was
like,
so
okay,
close
we're
to
going to
your
find a place where you can finish, because this has been so hard. We're not giving up. Spring break of grade 12, I'm not giving up.
How long did it seem, Suzanne? I don't know if this is quantifiable, but with all the moves and stuff, because it reminds me of my journey. Not because I was moved a lot, and so the process is the same. Maybe the reason behind it was different, but still, Ben was moved, I was moved, and I remember I'm looking at the things in my mind that I dealt with. How long did it take Ben, in your opinion, to hit a little stride? How long was it good for him when you moved him to a new place before it started easing back over to that dark side?
That's such an interesting question. I don't think it was about time. It was about, to be completely honest, it was about the teachers.
Each time.
So
even going into a new situation, did you bring in like a slinky? Here's all the shit that happened and all the others, which is why this has been fourth move since 6th grade, or whatever the case may be. And we fault, to some part, the administrators, the teachers at these other institutions, and we don't want that here. How are you going to make sure that doesn't happen to our son? Did you have those kind of conversations as the progression of Ben moving through school took place?
we did the first time. So when we pulled him in grade 4 and put him into a private school, they 100% knew why we were coming.
Okay.
That was fine. I didn't have to tell myself that when I homeschooled him, because I knew why I was homeschooling him.
Yeah.
And when he switched into the high school that he went to, we definitely had a conversation about why he was homeschooling, right? And that we were, transitioning out of homeschooling, and what we hoped was possible. And of course, the school hopes that's possible too, right? And they're not going to say, no, no school that you're having your entry meeting with is going to say, well, we have a number of problematic teachers and we'll try and keep him away from them.
Right.
But they had a number of problematic teachers, and at points promised me they would keep him away from them, and then would put him in their class.
Wow.
And this is not a dish on teachers. I'm not intending to diss teachers. There's tons of amazing teachers, and it's the amazing teachers that kept him there till grade 12 spring break.
Okay.
Right?
Were any of these schools overcrowded, in your opinion? I'm just wondering, the student to teacher
ratio. So, I mean, the student teacher ratio is mandated here. So it's the same across the board. It's mandated in the teacher's contract, what the classroom sizes are and composition. So no, I don't think it was an overcrowding issue. Sorry?
He was being challenged. It
No,
sounds
he
like
was
he
never
didn't have,
challenged at school ever.
he was, it was like boring for him. I mean, because he
Oh
was
my gosh.
a high achiever.
I remember him coming home in grade 3 and saying, Mom, we're learning division. I'm like, yeah. He says, well, we learned division last year. Oh yeah. Okay, here's the bad news, buddy. Well, he already understood division and could do division by grade 2 or grade 3, whatever year you learned division. I said, when you were learning division, the teacher was explaining it, so you understood what you already knew. Some of the kids were looking out the window because there was a bird. Some of the kids were confused because they didn't understand what the teacher was talking about. Some of the kids learned division, but they forgot it since then. So we're going to learn division again this year. And I'm going to warn you right now, you're also going to learn division again next year. Because if you think about how the system works, it's incremental growth, right? So we revisit what we've already learned. We teach it to the kids who missed it and try and catch them up. And then we take a step forward. Well, for him, he understood it before you taught it to him. You taught it to him once, he now gets it completely. And the fact that you're going to do it again, and then again, and then again, maddening to him. Of course, makes no sense at all to him because he would see it once and remember it and understand it and be ready to move on. Math was impossible because he could get the answer. He just knew the answer. So teachers who required him to show his work, almost impossible to navigate. And I would say to them, okay, I understand that there are steps and you want him to be able to write down the steps because one day it might be important that he understand the breakout of those steps.
Yes.
How about if we worry about that day when it comes? When the day comes that he can't give you the answer, let's worry about it then. But for now, he knows the answer. So could he get part marks that he got the answer right? No, he's failing all his math.
I never understood that either.
Like for
why
crying out
wouldn't you take a
loud.
closer look at that, the way that person processes? Right, absolutely.
Who cares? He knows the answer. Don't you want him to know the answer? He knows the answer.
Isn't
When we
that
get
the
to the part
eventual
where he can't
outcome?
get the answer,
then
we'll figure it out.
Let me ask you this. So did you ever get Ben tested? Was he on the spectrum at all?
We worked with a child psychologist for years when he was young, because when you have a child who has, suicidal ideation, you start to work with experts and professionals.
Sure.
And she and I often talked about whether he was on the spectrum and decided he was not. I think, and he talked with his friend, I know, because now that I know some of his friends, I know they talked about it. And I think he probably was on the spectrum at some point, but super functional,
right. High functioning.
Yeah.
Creative. Because he reminds me of, I have 6 coaching clients who are high achievers that are all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Everything from Asperger's to schizophrenia, all kinds of stuff. I even have one client who is multiple personalities run in the family. Yeah. And I'm just going to tell you, and myself, and Lord knows how many of us have ADHD, ADD and all that. I myself. And I remember a lot of what you were saying. I ended up in the hallways. They pushed my little chair out there because I'd be finished. The answers were right. There might be, they got to look all over the paper to find it because I've drawn arrows to where it sits. I didn't put it on their line. Whatever. My mind worked differently, but it was there. Yeah. They just didn't want it. They wanted to look and find it exactly where every other little robot put it. Yeah. And I know now that the creatives do everything differently. We're free spirits. We're not linear. So anyway, I bet you you're right. I bet you he was. And that's a great thing. That's a superpower. Ben had superpowers and the world didn't understand it. So let's move forward, because 2020, this happened. Wow. While death was no stranger to most everybody at that time because of the big C. So let's talk about that. You're dealing with this, the death of your son, in one of the most horrible times, because I did a show and I talked to funeral directors and first responders, anybody you needed to get someone in front of because of an emergency. Wasn't easy, was it? Talk about how this happened. What time of the year was it, first of all, in 2020?
Ben died at the end of September.
End of September. So officially going into the fall.
Yep.
So you get a string of those holidays, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So when that turns and we go and you see the leaves changing and this and you're going into fall, does anything change in your world? Like a cloud, does it become darker, grayer because this is the season we lost Ben? Talk about, triggers and how you get through when families are together and there's that empty chair and the pictures are still out where look at all of us, the 4 of us, the 5 of us. Go just, you know where I'm going. So just
I
take
do.
that because there are people that don't know how to deal with that stuff and they're in the midst of it right now as we speak.
Yeah, I think for me, I feel September coming. So my birthday is at the end of August, exactly a month before Ben died. So for me, that's the start of
Mm,
here it comes.
okay.
Um,
Here it comes.
here
And
it
and
comes.
and, and what do you mean when you say it?
So when I say it, I mean grief, right? I can feel it. Like here it comes. I can feel it right now. Christmas is 3 days away. The train is coming. The tsunami is on the way, and that's
Nothing you
okay.
can do about it.
Nothing I can do about it. Nothing I can do about it.
Okay,
And I think
okay.
that's really important for us to
Mm,
understand.
exactly.
Grief is, the best analogies for me are the ocean ones. It's waves, right? Sometimes they're predictable. If you think about the ocean,
Mm,
sometimes the waves are all in motion, like they're all in formation. Here they come. It's tidal, it's very organized. Sometimes it's a storm of epic proportions.
mm,
And you can't necessarily predict which of those it's going to be at any given time.
mm.
I know for me and for most grievers, the loved one's birthday and their thaniversary, the anniversary of their death,
What did you call it?
thaniversary.
Thaniversary.
Yeah.
What's that
After
stand for?
Thanos, right? Thanos, the god of death.
Oh,
Thaniversary, because an anniversary is too sparkly. I don't like it. So David
okay.
Kessler actually coined that phrase, and I just
Okay.
love it to pieces. So I use it all the time. So
Nice.
thaniversary, I know those two are going to be tricky. I know Christmas going to be tricky. I can't predict how tricky because from year to year it changes, right? And some years it's awful. I
Yeah.
mean, and other years it's not as bad. And that doesn't happen in a linear way either. So part of what's important to understand is there's nothing linear about grief. There's not really much that's predictable. We kind of just have to ride it. To me, the best navigation is to just ride the waves, right? You're in your boat, you're riding the
Mhm.
waves. Sometimes the
Mhm.
boat gets swamped and you're bailing like mad. Other times you're just kind of on the surface and it's okay. Trying to control it, not a great path for most people. It's not going to work long term. So you really just need to ride it.
Let's
So,
stop
yes.
right there. Let's stop right there. Trying to control it. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yep.
Because going through the motions, it's like this. This is for both sides of the table. Not just those who are dealing with grief, but those of us who love those people that are going that are grieving. It's like when a person gets a diagnosis and you want to go visit them, but you don't want to keep talking about what the diagnosis is, but you don't want to act like it's not there, the elephant in the room. Because, it's like, okay, I wanted to be Captain Death, the Grim Reaper here, but it's such a fine line
Yeah.
that a lot of us don't know how to navigate through. So let's go there for a second, because a lot of people I know sometimes and I have a sister in my birth family, the one right above me, Sandra, we're in sync for some reason, when, especially in the early years after our mom's death, she had her whole life. I had her much less, coming together at the age 32. However, we both had this thing. And then we would end up calling, we still do it. We end up calling each other because we feel this grief about our mom. It's not her birthday. It's not just some
Yeah.
day.
It's
And we
Tuesday.
wake up feeling them.
Yeah.
And so that's when we said, you know what? I don't think we're grieving her death as much as we're grieving the absence, the void that she left.
Mm-hmm.
So take us into, how do you put on a happy face, when you don't feel like it, because it's the holidays. You're not trying to blow it for everybody. There's that side. And then people, you feel like a turncoat. You're betraying their memory if you're having fun without them. All kinds of things. We can't serve that. Nobody can carve the turkey. That was Ben's job. Or don't sit in that chair. That was Ben's chair. All over. So it's not just
Yep.
people who have just anybody that's missing. I know families where the father passed away 25 years ago, and that chair at the end of the table where he sat, no one still sits in it.
Wow. Yeah. And this is where I say it's awkward, right? All of this is awkward because we're not sure what to do. We're
What do
not
we
sure what
do?
to say. We're
Yeah.
not sure of anything. And so I say, let's embrace the awkward. Let's just
Okay.
embrace it.
How?
Here's my suggestion. First of all, I want to say something really important. A lot of the time, what I hear from people who are supporting someone who's grieving, as you say, our loved one is experiencing grief, they worry that they're going to remind the person. And that's what you were talking about when someone gets a diagnosis, you want to go visit them. You don't want to just be talking about the diagnosis all the time. You don't want to bring it up if they're not thinking about it. I'm going to tell you as a griever, I'm thinking about Ben every moment of every day. I will never forget he is gone. The same way I will never forget my mom is gone. I will never forget my dad is gone, my grandmas and grandpas, my aunties and uncles. I will never forget that. Friends, acquaintances, I'll never forget. You are not going to remind us because we remember. The fact that you also remember is a gift. So for me and many grievers, for you to come and say, oh my gosh, it's the holiday season, I imagine it might be really hard for you right now because you must be missing your loved one terribly. If you want to talk about that, I'm here for you. And if you don't want to talk about that, I'm here for that too. And you let them lead. Let them lead. You don't have to lead. This is something that's really important for us to hear. If you're supporting someone who's grieving,
yes,
you don't lead. They lead. So open the door.
So you're saying, listen.
Yeah, exactly. The one universal about grief is it needs to be witnessed.
Grief
so if
needs
you
to
can
be
be
witnessed.
that witness, right? Think about how you feel when you had that moment, right, where you were overwhelmed thinking about your birth mom and you were able to say that out loud. And I was able to say, oh yeah, I get you. That moment shifted. You're not stuck in that moment.
Right.
Because it got witnessed.
Oh,
and
you know
so it
what?
moves through.
Oh,
and we all carry on with our day.
You're brilliant. Because I'm going to tell you something. I was like, let me see. Because as soon as you said, I was like, do I do that? Let me think of instances where I've done that. But I see now, and I didn't call it that, but I will now. I find when I'm feeling that void from either my birth mom or my adopted mom, their pictures are hanging right in my foyer, right above and below each other. I find what helps me too is I talk to them out loud. I acknowledge them, not just when I'm feeling grief, but all the time. If they pop in my mind, I'll speak it. I'll say their name. I'll have a brief conversation, believe it or not, with them. So talk about you do that? Find yourself?
Yeah.
And
there's
to me,
nothing
it's
weird
very
about talking
healing.
to your loved one. Let's just normalize that to start. There's nothing weird about that. People do it all the time. It's very normal.
Some people only do it when they go to the gravesite. That kind of a thing.
And if you need to kind of have a structure or a ritual around it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with
And
that.
that's
People
fine,
go
but
to
that's
the
what works.
gravesite. Yeah, I think that they do that. This is my theory because I'm not going to study it. I think that they do that because that is socially acceptable. Right?
Yeah,
when you
like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, when you say, "Oh, when I think about them, I talk to them," to some people that sounds a little bit wacky. So I'm here to tell you it's not wacky at all. It's very normal.
Right.
And for some people, they want that structure that feels acceptable, that feels appropriate. I'm all over that stuff. You're not going to should on my grief. I'm just going to do it my way. I don't care what people think, frankly. I just don't.
Yeah.
And so, but lots of people do. And my path is my path, and other people get to pick their path. This is a no judgment, no shame, no blame conversation.
This is true.
And it's really normal to want to talk to your loved one. And, when you feel them or you think about them, to say, oh, like I'll see, Ben comes to me in feathers and birds often. And I saw a bird the other day and I was like, oh, there you are. I just knew it was him. Just coming to flip. I was a hummingbird in December, right? Flitting right by my head by the tree that the dog was using as a signpost, right? Flitted around a little bit. I'm like, oh, there you are. Oh, hey, buddy. Thank you. Like I needed to feel you today because December's hard. Christmas is coming. It's hard. I'm okay with talking about him when I'm standing on the street corner. Doesn't matter to me. So you have to find your way. And what I'll say is that, because grief still has this taboo and we don't talk about it, we don't understand that what we're experiencing is normal. So I will tell you, everything you are experiencing many, many grievers have also experienced. But because we don't talk about it, we think there's something wrong with us. We think that what's happening to us doesn't happen to other people. I
Right.
had intense brain fog, like intense brain fog.
Right.
I honestly thought, this sounds so ridiculous to me 3.5 years out, but at the time, I really thought, Ben has died. I'm no longer the person I was, so I've also lost myself. And somehow I have some version of instant onset brain disease. Of course, that's not true. There was nothing wrong with me at all. I was grieving. But because nobody talks about it, we don't understand that there's very typical symptoms. There's very typical things that will happen to us. And they're all okay. And they'll come in a different order, they'll come in a different structure, they'll come at different times, some
Right.
predictable, some not. So for me, the conversations that we have where we share, where you share, ooh, I'm having that kind of moment. You didn't just gloss over it and keep going, because we need to understand how this is working for each other.
Right.
So if you are having brain fog, if you're having digestive issues, if you're either sleeping too much or too little, if you're struggling with time, if you don't remember how to do anything that used to be easy. I remember in the early days standing in the shower and thinking, what on earth do I do here? Like, I never used to have to think about that. But I
Right.
would stand there and go, okay, so I'm going to do my hair first. And
Oh.
then I'm going to do my body. I'm going to do the arms and then
Mm.
the torso and then the legs. And then I got to do my face. Like, I would have to talk myself through showering because all that muscle memory kind of stuff was gone. My daughter tells a hilarious story of us deciding we should feed ourselves because we didn't feed ourselves for a really long time. Other people fed
Yeah.
us, we fed ourselves other ways other than us cooking.
Yes.
And we decided we could make a grilled cheese sandwich. It took us 45 minutes to make a grilled cheese sandwich because it
Oh.
just was complicated and felt hard and we didn't remember how. And that's very normal, but we don't share that because it feels vulnerable. It feels like there's something wrong with us because other people aren't sharing how they've struggled with normal tasks in their grief. But that's what happens. Our brain is busy doing other things.
Well,
And
what about this? What about times when, because in my adopted family, I have a sister who, right at COVID, 3 weeks after this happened, COVID came. Her husband Joe took his own life, and my sister, and it was up in the hallway leading on the third floor of their home, leading to their bedroom. Well, to this day, as far as I know, she still hasn't gone up there. She which where does she? There are no bedrooms on the first floor. I mean, and she hasn't. She slept in a chair in
yeah,
the living room ever since, or on the couch in the living room. And I'm like, how long do we allow this? And then it got to a point where nobody wanted. You know what I'm saying? So
mhm.
there, it's just so here. Let's talk about solutions because it's such a fine line. Jack, it just is. It's a fine, fine line, Suzanne. And I want to ask you this. Let's pivot a little bit because I know when women have babies, they can stay at home for so many weeks for maternity leave. But what about when you lose a baby? No matter how old they are, a parent or anyone, you lose a loved one. And this is where one of your niches where you work with people who on how to grieve in the workplace. I
Yep.
had never thought about that. Because you don't want to go back because everybody's going to be like, not knowing what to say, and it's awkward, and she's not the same, or this that, and the other. What if I slip and say something? So talk about how you help people reintegrate um themselves into the workplace after loss, but then also how they integrate their new reality and the new them, because a lot of people might not like the new version.
That's the truth.
I
Yeah.
mean, so let's talk about that. Let's use your example. I'm assuming that's how you became an authority on it.
Yep.
So what was it like for you? Take us through it. What was the worst part of going back to work?
Oh. The worst part. Okay, so the worst part was that I mean, there's so many good parts and so many bad parts. I would say the worst part was that people didn't know what to do or say, and they didn't know how to support me.
There it
So
is.
I was really lucky. My immediate supervisor I had worked with for years, he knew Ben really well. He was amazing. Above him, in the corporate structure, there was no support system. There was no support structure. So I was lucky in that most people said something.
Yeah.
Not always a good thing. Like, people said something. I had to get to the point, to be honest, where I just had to hook into the energy of what they intended, because the words were so harmful much of the time. And I will say, those cliches and platitudes, just don't say them anymore. Never again. I tell you, never again. Never. So I had to hook into the intention, right? They're showing that they care about me. They're
They're
showing
doing
that
their
they cared
best.
about Ben, right? Because a lot of people at work knew him. We had lots of gatherings where people would bring their loved ones, and so Ben would be
Sure.
my plus one, right?
People saw him grow up.
Yeah, I'd worked there for 6 years by the time he died. So yeah, I mean, he was
Yeah, they
22. They
saw
met him when he
him,
was 15, right? That's a big difference.
Exactly.
Heard all the stories of, the drama of pulling your child from grade 12 in spring break. Pretty dramatic, right? So lots of people knew him. And I remember saying to, I worked on a TV show at the time, and I remember saying to our showrunner, who was also the head writer, who had become friendly with, and he phoned to express his condolences, and he said, like, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what the right words are. And I said to him, you are a writer. You write what people say for a living, and you don't know what to say. And that's because there are no right words.
None.
If I could come up with the one size fits all perfect thing to say to a griever, I would make $1 bajillion, but there is no one thing. So what you can say is what's honest and true from your heart. And if you're speaking from there, you can do no harm. Because what I hear from people the most is they don't know what to say, and they don't want to do harm. We don't want to hurt the person who's already hurting.
Right.
So speaking from your heart, it's okay to say that you don't know what to say. That's what he did. I don't know what to say. There's no perfect words. You're right. There isn't. So let's start there and then have a conversation from our hearts. That's brilliant, right?
Right. And
Within
it
a
doesn't even have
corporate
to be a
structure.
conversation. Sorry to butt in, but I remember because I've lost 2 mothers.
Yeah.
And to me, I know it's not the same, but I think it allows me to sit in the pew right next to a person who's buried a child.
Yep.
Because
100%.
most people have a hard time burying one mother, and and I had to endure it twice. Right. And so I'll say this. The man, sometimes it's the unspoken that was the
Mhm.
most healing. And because I understood it, that was our common ground. And what I mean is, I'll never forget, was I was a kid, and I was sitting there after I being told, "Don't cry." I was like 13, 12, 13. I was,
Yeah.
"Don't cry," one of my brothers said, pinching me, and then someone from church, I don't remember who it was, but it was a female. I remember she walked past, how people go up and see it. They get to
Mhm.
see the body last, and then we go. At least that's how it was then. And she walked by and she just touched my shoulder, the one on the outside of the pew.
Yep.
And I remember, as a kid, just because she did it, I put my hand on top of hers to answer her. She said something when she laid it there, and
Mhm.
I said something when I acknowledged by touching her on top of her hand, and she let her hand slide as she walked on by. And I remember that, and I don't remember any of the words that people said, but I remember that 50 years later.
Yeah.
So, it's a real thing. Let's go to this. Is there such a thing as a grief hotline?
I don't not
Where
here.
if you're having trouble grieving, and grieving is getting ready to pull you into a pit,
Yeah.
you see it tied up and it's got the other end around you and it's threatening to jump in, and you're like trying to get the knot undone. Where can you call? Where can you reach?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us who don't know how to grieve
Yeah.
know when it's getting hot in here.
Yep.
When you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
I don't know of one. That's a
Maybe
very
there
good
should be one. Hint, hint.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, ooh, what am I manifesting for 2024?
A
Perhaps it's the
grief
grief hotline.
hotline.
Yeah, and it's really hard to find actually grief savvy support folks, even within sort of therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists. Many of them don't have lived experience, and their training isn't that great
And to get to them
about
when
grief.
you need them. Like
Yeah,
right now, let's say, 3:13 a.m.
yeah. And what I would say is for many people, they end up with one or two. I ended up with four. I call them now my stalwart companions, right? Who just never gave up, never left. They're still showing up. One messaged me the other day to say, "Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. I know you're feeling Christmas coming. Can I send you skip the dishes gift card so that at least you
Oh.
can feed yourself?" Yes, please. I will graciously accept that, right? So hopefully in your life as a griever, you have those stalwart companions. And I had one whose husband had died suddenly. Oh my gosh, our kids were little. He'd had a heart attack, similar to the story you're telling of your sister, right? He'd had a heart attack in their home. Yeah, I don't know when she last went into that bedroom. And your sister never has to go back in that bedroom, by the way. You're asking how long? As long as she needs. You could say, if you want some help going through that room, repurposing it, changing it around, I'm here for you. And if you need to sleep on the couch forever, I'm here for that too.
Yeah.
But it's helpful if you have one or two people that you can phone at any hour of the day or night. That's really important. And for me, I was really lucky. My daughter was one of the many young people who came home for COVID. So she was here. So we had each other in those moments to be like, oh my gosh, here it comes, holding on for dear life.
So I bet I wonder if you've been asked this question before. Were you single when this happened to
Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah.
Okay. So you get a perspective. You know how a lot of couples that are married and they're happy and they're thriving and then they lose a child, how an alarming number of them don't make it.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that connection, but you're still shared. Ben's father is still alive?
Yep. That
Okay.
was my first phone call.
So how was it for the two of you going through this, but you weren't married? Because it didn't. How can it tear away something that's not there? But
Yeah.
did it bring you closer? Did you, or what? How did you process? What was that like for you? I'm saying because if you didn't have a husband to take it out on, the thing that makes them break. Well, I'm saying,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yep.
Was there a place in your life that you did, throw it all on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I chose to grieve out loud. So I was grieving all the time. And I didn't feel the need to
Were
tamp
people
that
running for
down.
the hills because
Many.
you were grieving all the time? Like, well, listen, unless
Yeah,
you want to cut your wrist, don't go over to Suzanne's house today.
that's fine.
Serious. No, I'm asking.
Yes.
Was it like that where they were like, okay,
I'm sure I was terrifying to many people, and I'm okay with that because for me, I had to. That was my mode of survival. I could not deny it. I could not tamp it down. That wasn't going to work. So I just grieved all the time.
so
It
you
didn't.
knew you had to get it out.
Yeah. And I
There it is.
knew,
There it is.
you were kind of alluding to this kind of weird hierarchy we have of things that we consider worth grieving. And I knew as a grieving mom, I got a lot of grace on that list. I kind of had hit the jackpot. Not helpful to anybody. All grief is grief. All grief needs witnessing. All grief needs to be felt.
That's
Whether you've
powerful.
lost your job or your child, I don't care.
All grief needs witnessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful. That should be on a shirt.
It should be.
I don't know where you'd wear it. I got the perfect shirt for that wake, right?
Right?
But I'm just saying that's
But
a
we should
powerful
be wearing
statement.
it every day whenever we feel like it because
This is
it's the
true.
truth, right?
This is true.
So it didn't
Last
impact my
question.
relationship with the kid's dad. It stayed the
Yeah.
same. What I will
Okay.
say to those parents, if you're struggling, they actually think this studies show that the divorce rate increases because we all grieve differently
Yeah.
and we start to judge how each other are grieving, that we're either grieving too much or not enough or not the right way.
Exactly.
And that's what tears the relationship apart.
Okay.
So I knew that. And so with my daughter and I, because we lived together and I didn't want to destroy that relationship, and we grieved very differently.
Okay.
We just had to give each other permission that however we needed to do it in any moment was okay. That was acceptable.
Got it. Got it. Last question. We're out of time, and I hate
Yeah.
that, but I got to get this in. Um, when you would step out of your out loud grieving, what was like that was carpeting? What was the foundation of the floor that you stepped onto? So, the Italian tile floor of bliss, happiness, release, the hardwood floor of purpose. What was it? Because I want people to know this. The way you grieve is important because it gets you somewhere. So where was somewhere for Suzanne? By grieving, where did it get you? What came next?
Where it got me was becoming a grief educator, was deciding that, I started sharing my story because I had to write to get it out of my head. And I, shared it on my personal Facebook page and heard universally.
Okay, wait a minute, because I want to get this. Okay, got you to grief educating.
Yep.
But what does that do for you? What grew above the soil now? Okay?
Yeah.
As a result of all you did under the soil with your grieving. What grew out of it? But for you personally, how did it change you?
I mean,
what do you get, Suzanne, from counseling people?
For me, it's a huge gift to be able to help someone see that what they're experiencing is normal.
So in
And
other
that what
words,
they've been told about grief is the lie.
it gave you a way that no one can ever take from you. That if you wanted to, every minute of every day for the rest of your life, you could and know that you would be able to ease suffering in the lives of those who are grieving. It gave you a way to know, a guaranteed way to ease suffering in this world. The reason I had to push it there was to let you know. Don't forget to celebrate as you grieve. As something goes out and there's something we let go of, it is to free that space up, to welcome in that thing that must be, that is coming to find us, but we got to open the door. Don't be surprised when it comes. Expect it. Because when legacy, when purpose, when everything that it's about rings the doorbell to your life, you want to open the door and you want to say, oh, there you are. Come on in.
Mm-hmm.
I've been expecting you. Okay. I want to leave that with you guys. Suzanne, awesome job. Great story. This is where you guys can go to continue the dialogue with Suzanne Jabour. There it is. Suzanne, 1Z, 2 N's. Jabour, I will drop it in the comment section. Any final words before we get out of here, Suzanne?
Open-heartedness, ride the wave, allow it to be, conscious curious. It's all normal and it's okay. And you will ultimately make it through.
There you go. Listen, you guys, thank you for a wonderful year. Thank you for a wonderful everything. I wouldn't do this. I couldn't do this, and nor would I want to without you. It's our last show of the year live, but it is the beginning of everything that is to come. Listen, get out and find your highest self today and every day. God willing, I'll meet you live Monday morning, January 8th, right over there on the front porch for a new year, a new me, a new you, a new us. God bless you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave you today with the Ho'oponopono blessing, because that is my desire. That is my wish. That is my prayer for all of us. Take this with you. Have a divine holiday season. God bless you. Love the ones you love and love yourself first. Suzanne, thank you. Thank you so much. This was really beautiful. Really beautiful. Thank you. You helped a lot of people today. God bless you. Okay. Bye, everybody. See you next year.
I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. I'm sorry. you. I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. I love you. I'm sorry.